It's coffee time. My room smells tragically like cat food. I say tragically because I'm going to be eating right when I'm done with this video because my food literally just showed up. And I figure when I order delicious smelling food for myself and I want to take my time eating it, the last thing that I want is a kitty face all up in my business trying to eat my food. So what I do sometimes is I order food, and then once it arrives, I give the cat his food. So the guy called me up when he was on his way over. He was like, hey, I'm just like a minute from your house. And I was like, dope. So I fed the cat, and now my whole room smells like cat food. And I was like, I'm just going to let you eat for a bit. I'm going to make coffee time and not eat my food while my room smells like cat food because it's weird. It's just a strange smell to eat along to. And I'm sure that, because I got Indian food, I'm sure that my tikka masala would crowd my senses and I wouldn't quite smell the cat food anymore, but it's still just, it felt like maybe I should give it a minute. So I did. But the reason that I ordered food, aside from the fact that I order food sometimes, is I pretty much always order food on Mangapod nights because I know that I'm going to be spending a decent amount of the day reading manga. And sometimes I lose track of time, and then suddenly we have to do Mangapod, and I realize I haven't eaten. So I normally set I do this. I set an alarm for myself for like 6:30, 6 o'clock or 6:30, depending. Today it was 6 o'clock. And then I order food. And then I keep reading. I just finished all the chapters that we have to do, so I get to just kind of like leisurely eat and not worry about it. But, yeah. So I try to time it out. You'll notice that most of the time on Mangapod, a bunch of us are eating. This is because typically we don't time it out very well. Because we sit there and we go, oh yeah, I need food. And then we order food, and then the food shows up right as we have to start Mangapod, and then we're like, oh no. And really, ideally, you would be either eating leftovers so that you can figure out the timing yourself, or making something easy, right? Like, that's cost effectively the better way to do it. But, it's just wanted tikka masala, so that's what happened. I timed it out perfect because it's here. It's here, and right now it's 6:45, which means that at 7 o'clock we're going to be doing sound check. Gives me plenty of time to eat while I'm also doing sound check for Erin, which she'll just love. Okay, sound check for pretty much everything that I do is my favorite thing. It's always magical. That's why I was doing those teasers for a while for Blood Bowl. Every time I put up a Blood Bowl video, I'd also put up like a little teaser of the match, because pretty much every time we would be just talking before the match actually started, there would be something that was so silly that would happen. And that's how it is with every single sound check. Like, TGS podcast, I always wonder why we don't record what's happening in Skype on TGS podcast before the podcast starts. I always wonder why we're not recording what's happening before Mangapod starts. It's the silliest conversations because typically, it's between people that don't live near each other or maybe don't talk like super often. Like TB and I are friends, obviously. Love him to death. But he and I don't chat a ton. He's busy as butts. And, so typically the time that we talk the most is during soundcheck for podcast and sometimes after podcast. And the conversations that happen between TB and Jesse and I sometimes are the silliest. And depending on the guest, sometimes the guest is just such a silly person and I love it. With Mangapod, aside from Twitter, I don't really interact with Yoku and Daza all that much. So once we get on there, we're all just like, like just let all of the silly out. And it's fun. It's just very fun. I like more and more of these that I'm doing. I really enjoy myself and have a lot of fun with them. So yeah, but Tower of God is really good. We read up through chapter, I'm sure I'll get this up by the time Mangapod starts, but I hate that Skype, instead of whoever just asked for my contact request, I'm sorry, but this has been happening all day. Apparently, after the Skype update, it made it so that you don't just have a contact requests tab that you can click on and then see all of your contact requests. They pop up as new chat windows. So literally, if I don't recognize you, I won't add you if I don't know who you are. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. But it literally makes me have to block people. Like, I can't just say, nope, I won't add them as a contact, because they can just keep sending me messages. So it forces me to block them, and I feel so bad every time. I'm like, I don't think that you are, like, I don't think it's necessary for me to block you, but if Skype is just gonna let you keep sending me messages, and I'm never gonna add you as a friend because we're not, then I have to block you, and I think that that's silly. Skype, I think that's silly. But what was I saying? Dang it. Tower of God is really good. I was gonna say something specific. Oh, yes, I will get this up by the time we start Mangapod. So tune into Mangapod. Twitch.tv/happilyerin. It will be starting at 7:30 Pacific time. And it's going to be funsies. We're talking about Tower of God, which is I think it started off as a Korean webcomic. And it's interesting because at first I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I don't really like the art all that much. Like, it's okay, but some of the positions are really wonky. It gets, like, progressively better the longer you read it. And the story I actually really like. And I love, there are lots of plot points that I think are going to last a really long time. And then you guys know, okay, you guys know how I feel about some sort of a plot point that could be solved really easily going for way too long, right? Those situations where you say, if only those two characters would talk to each other, then everything would be fine. I really like that this addresses that. There are some times when things are going on and you're like, oh gosh, I wish that this would just get sorted. And then it gets sorted. You're like, oh, well, never mind. You know, so it's fun. I really like it. I'm excited to talk about it because I wound up getting super invested. And if any of you read the Fullmetal Alchemist manga, the way that Al, when he's in his armor, the way that Al is drawn when he's being kind of silly, like the really thick outlines and the kind of like weird face with the circle eyes, that's how Rack, the alligator fisherman, is drawn, and he is my favorite character. And I love when he's drawn that way because he like started off as this super serious character, and then he wound up being the silliest character, and it's so great. He's the butt of like every single joke, and I love it. I love it, I love it, I love it. More, more. So I'm excited to read more of it. I thought that we were going to finish the whole first series up through chapter 72, I think, but we only went up to chapter 57 because we weren't all able to finish all of it, so which was fine. Which is fine. But, yeah. So, other than that, had a meeting early this morning that I almost could not wake up for. I set my alarm. Here's what I do. I set my alarm, and the alarm wakes me up perfectly fine. I don't sleep through it. But then I set my timer. So you set the alarm for a certain time. It wakes you up at a certain time, and then you go, okay, I could probably sleep for like 5 more minutes. And you set your timer for 5 minutes, and then it goes off, and then you're like, yeah, I could probably sleep for like 5 more minutes. You set the timer again and start the timer. I don't know how many times I did that, but I wound up having a dream. Hugh Dancy, if you ever watch this, I'm so sorry. I wound up having a dream that I was a prostitute, and Hugh Dancy bought me as a prostitute, but then we didn't like touch butts at all. He just hung himself in bed, which makes no sense. I was like, there was an understanding for Dream Me that we used to be in love. It was just the weirdest thing. I was like, we used to love each other, and then he found me as a prostitute and took me home, and I was like, oh man, this is so crazy. I never thought we'd find each other again. And then I went into the bedroom and he was laying in bed with a noose around his neck, but I knew he was dead, and I was like, Dream me was very upset. I was very, very upset. But when I woke up, I questioned everything about that. I was like, how did he hang himself in bed? What? And I don't know how long I wondered how a person could do that, which is awful and morbid, but I need to stop watching Hannibal. Is really, I mean, there's only one episode left. So unless I plan on, well, I did this with Sherlock. I was gonna say unless I plan on rewatching that series over and over again. But let's be honest, I don't know how many times I've seen the first series of Sherlock episodes. I honestly could not tell you. I've so many times, you guys. Oh my goodness. So I'm probably gonna wind up doing that with Hannibal too. Just gonna watch it all over and over and over again. Hulu is going to have the weirdest statistics. They're going to be like, oh, man, suddenly people really love Hannibal. I'm going to be like, yes. Yes, they do. It's not because I've rewatched all of the available episodes at least 20 times. That's not why. That's absolutely not why. But, yeah, so I am going to eat and go to Mangapod and join us if you want. And I think you're all beautiful. Okay. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Mwah. Oh, are you done eating?